All right. Please state your name, age, years of service, and rank at retirement.
William Morton Williams. And I'll be 79 years old December the 28th. When I retired, I was captain, and I retired in 2005. I'd been a captain 22 years when I retired.
Were you originally from the Greensboro area?
Yes, sir. I was born and raised on the east side of Greensboro between Phillips Avenue and Wendover Avenue.
What made you want to join the fire department? Did you have like family that were members of the department?
No, sir. My first wife and my wife was keeping a small baby for a guy that worked off of Engine 1 at Central Station named George Trogdon. He was the driver on Engine 1 when we had old Central Station down.
Yes.
And listening to him and knowing 2 or 3 others that worked on the department, and me married with 2 children, just built a brand new house and trying to make as much money as I could make, I said, I'm going to apply for it. And that's what I did. And didn't even know what starting salary was when I applied. And my starting salary when I started was $605 a 56-hour week. And that averaged $7,200 a year.
So back then when you started, were there still 2 shifts or did they have 3 shifts?
Three shifts.
So did you ever imagine that, you would have been a fireman as a kid? Did you look up to firemen?
No, sir. No, sir. And besides George, there was 1 or 2 other people on the department that I knew. And they enjoyed what they did. One of them was a captain, Malin Hancock. And that was, they all said, it's a good job. It's good working conditions and everything else. And that's what I did. I left the city schools because I was doing electrical maintenance for the city schools and went to work for the fire department.
Was your retirement from the city schools, did that carry over to the
No,
two separate retirement systems?
I was actually an employee of the state of North Carolina.
Gotcha.
Just like the school teachers and everything like that. And I didn't know until after I come to the department that our retirement system was part of the same system. And I found out the differences when, after several months that I'd been to work. Because see, when I worked for the school system, I paid no health insurance at all. That was paid by the state of North Carolina. When I came to work for the fire department, my insurance cost me $8 a month, and that was with a wife and 2 kids. And now it is astronomical what y'all pay.
About $531 for all benefits, or vision, health, and dental for family coverage.
But and the biggest reason,
well, $531 a check.
The biggest reason, for coming with the department was money. I mean, I didn't know nothing about the fire department. Absolutely nothing, not a thing. And over a period of 31 years, I learned a lot.
Yeah, learned and taught a lot.
Yeah, I saw a ton.
So you talked about, when you first got hired, the starting salary was around, you said $601?
$605.
$605. So what was the hiring process like then? What did you have to do to get hired here?
We had to go through a medical interview, had to have a complete medical test. Then we had to have an interview here. Well, it wasn't here, it's at Central Station downtown. We had to have an interview with part of the staff down there. And if we cleared all of that, we were hired, basically. And my class that was hired, we were called Roman numeral 13 by the people that work now. And we started with 15. They fired one the first day, 10 minutes late. And the rest of us sitting in the room said, oh, Lord.
They mean business.
Be quiet and listen, pay attention.
Do you remember? So you said it was 15. Do you remember any of your like the instructors that taught you during that?
R.B. Kent was our training person. He run our training class, and my class was the first class that ever had captains to come off the line and work with him. Clarence Hilliard was a captain at Station 7. He was one of the instructors in our class, and we had 5 different ones that worked with R.B. Kent that taught our class, but they were all line captains.
So was he a chief?
No, sir. He was a captain.
He was a captain, and then he brought
all of them were captains, excluding R.B. Kent, and R.B. Kent was a chief. Yeah.
Do you remember any like memorable moments from rookie school that stand out from you?
Well, along with the first one being fired because he was 10 minutes late, the very first day we went into the training building out there, the 4-story training building, and they'd take you in there blindfolded, and you would have to get out in a certain amount of time. And by 4 o'clock that evening, we had a boy in that building that went in there about right after lunch, and he was still in there. They had to go in there and get him out. That was pretty memorable for our class. And we had another guy in our class, maybe midway through the class, and he was the smartest one, beyond a doubt, in our class as far as tests and things like that. And they brought Station 5, brought the ladder truck out here and set it up beside the building and said, we're going to put you, and this wasn't a basket truck. It was
Just a
stick ladder. And said, y'all going to get to climb this today? He said, nah, not me. And he walked off. We got down pretty thin pretty quick. And me, one of the biggest things, I was the oldest one in the class. I was the only one married and the only one that had children. I was 27 years old. I turned 28 in December after I went on the line, and the rest of them were kids. The youngest one was Emmett Van Ness. Emmett Van Ness had just turned 19 years old, and I don't know if you know him or not. Emmett's he was a big boy, taller than you, and I made up my mind one thing I was going to do during training, because we would leave the training center here, and this building didn't exist.
Yeah, you were in what's now our bureau.
Right. We would leave here right after class started, and we'd run across Church Street right here over to Elm Street and run Elm Street back up to Wendover and back down Wendover, back down here every morning. I said, and he was always first. Always. I said, I'm going to beat him one time. And I did. But that was one of the biggest things. Is most of the people that were in our class were Joey McIntyre and Craig Lewis were probably the 2 closest to my age. And they were 2 or 3 years younger than me. And then the rest of them were all in maybe 6 years younger than me, and I felt kind of out of place, really. And it was tough. I don't mind telling you.
So how did you feel like by the end? Did you feel like it was still tough, or did you feel like y'all kind of bonded and grew like a tight knit, like a family?
We gelled together. We really did. And with a group of, by then there wasn't but 12 of us, and with that group, you knew who was going to pick and play. You knew that everybody was going to try to do the best that they could do. You really did. I mean, and the whole class worked together. We really did. I had one guy in our class that graduated from Page High School with me, but he was 2 years younger than me. And the reason for that, my birthday being in December, I had to wait another year before I could start school. And he started school a year earlier because he was from out of state originally. And he got started 5 years old, but there was 2 years difference in our age. Yeah. And I didn't start till I was 7. I was the second oldest person in my high school graduation class when I graduated. And I turned 19 in December before I graduated in June from high school.
So where were you at? I know we talked about it before the camera started rolling. Where were you doing before you started working for the Greensboro Fire Department?
Working for Commercial Electric Company. I'd been with Commercial Electric Company since 1960. I went to work for them at 13 years old. And I stayed with them. Matter of fact, I was working for the Greensboro City Schools. I wasn't working for commercial. I stayed with Commercial Electric Company to 69. And 69, I went to work for the Greensboro City Schools doing all the electrical maintenance. There was 2 of us for the Greensboro City Schools. And I came to work here in 74.
So what was your first station assignment and your first
Station
truck you were
7.
So what was your first station assignment and apparatus you were assigned to?
Station 7. I was on engine 7.
Now, was that a 2-company house back then?
No, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yeah, they brought the ladder truck in there maybe 3 months before.
So how many people were assigned to each truck back then?
4, but we only had 3 most of the time on the truck company.
So 4 on the engine and 3 on the truck. Who was your first captain?
All Brown.
What do you remember about your first crew, like the dynamics and you talked about y'all picking and playing in rookie school and stuff. How did that correlate to when you got on the line?
When I went to Station 7, I had Paul Brown for a captain. I had Kyle Stewart for a driver. I had Danny Shoemate on the truck with us, on the back of the truck. Danny Nelson and myself and Paul Brooks. But one of us just about every other day we worked, rotated on the truck company because we were running short with people. And in that time frame, they required a minimum of 3 people on every truck. And usually would keep 4 on the ladder truck. But I enjoyed every minute of it. And we did things at the station together that they don't do now.
Like what?
Play basketball, have water fights.
Well, we still do those every now and then.
Yeah, our battalion, we had a battalion chief at Station 7 with us. A fabulous person. He'd been on the fire department 30 years when I came on. We had a water fight. And we'd pull the hose off the hydrant. We had like a regular household hose hooked up to the hydrant right there at the back door. We pulled it in the station and we were chasing each other with water buckets and that hose. We had the hose going through the chief's car in one door and out the other one. He got a fire call.
How'd that work out?
Not real good. He give us a ration. I ain't kidding you. He did. He give us we did a lot of stuff together, really.
Yeah.
I mean, and at 7, we had good cooks. Kyle Stewart, every year that we worked on Christmas, which I worked just about every holiday every year. We would cook for Thanksgiving for the families, and we'd fill the truck room floor. They don't do that now. But when I went on, we were taking up $2.50 a day for 2 meals. And once a month, we would pay $5 into the divvy to buy, stuff to keep in the cabinets, mayonnaise, mustard, ketchup. We had anything in the cabinets that you had in your house.
Yeah.
That your mom and dad had. And it was just a good group. It was a wonderful group. And Clarence Hilliard was on our shift. He was captain on the truck company, and he had just made captain on the truck company when I went out there in 1974, November. We went the day before Christmas. And my class, half of my class were rovers. The rest of my class, there was 6 of us that were assigned to stations. The rest of them were rovers. They went wherever you put them.
So how did they pick that back in the day? How did they decide who was going to be assigned versus the roving fireman?
Got no clue. Don't mind telling you. I got no clue. But I do know in mine and Emmett Van Ness and Joey McIntyre, that were all in my class, within 2 months, we were driving trucks after we got out of training because nobody could drive straight gears. And all the trucks then were straight gear. And the bulk of us were all raised on farms. That's like with me. I was raised on a tobacco farm in Summerfield. And basically, and I was driving a tractor when I was 9 years old. We could drive straight gears and we filled in everywhere.
Do you feel like that made you get more of like a permanent assignment? Like you had that edge up, like because of your upbringing when you came into the fire service?
No, not really, because as the department kept getting, and see, in that time frame, we were having a training class about every year. And by the time, I'd been on 3 or 4 years, just about everything in the department was an automatic transmission. And they had made changes on what they would hire and who they would hire, just like now. They won't hire anybody now without a college education, either that or a fire science or fire engineering degree. The only thing we had to have was a legal North Carolina driver's license and a high school education and no kind of criminal record. But now.
So when you came on, did they have to have like any kind of medical responder, EMT training back then?
My class was the first class to take EMT training, and we did that at the stations after we come out of training.
So when it came to like this the station life, did you earn any nicknames? Did they call you Bill growing up, or did you earn that Bucky?
Buckets.
Buckets.
Yep, that's what my crew called me, and I was the rookie. They called me Buckets.
So why do they call you Buckets?
Because they said I looked like I was walking around carrying 2 5-gallon buckets. I'm serious.
Was the union involved back in the day when? What was their involvement with the union?
Really, in my entire career, and it may just be because I wasn't at the right stations at the right time, the union didn't play a big part, really, in any changes in the department.
Gotcha.
They would keep you informed on what they were trying to get done, to get more money, to get other things, insurances and stuff like that. But the biggest thing that came into play with the union was when we voted as a department on whether or not we wanted to pay Social Security. And the majority of us that had worked all our life and paid Social Security basically got screwed because Ronald Reagan passed a law in 1989 called the Bailey Act. If you worked for a municipality that had a retirement system, you could only draw 40% of your Social Security, no matter what. And when I come to work here at the fire department, I already had my 40 quarters paid. And just like right now, my wife was a beautician. She retired in 1991 when the oldest granddaughter was born. She draws $800 and some a month Social Security. I worked from 1960 to 2005. I draw $300.
Did any of that stuff change when that legislation changed a year or so ago?
As far as the department, I don't know if it changed or not. The only thing I can tell you is that we got a one-time check from the federal government for it.
Like back pay was like back pay, or
guess
did
so.
that increase your monthly stuff any?
No.
Gotcha.
No.
We're going to dig into the firehouse culture and daily life. So what was it like, when you first started going in, when you joined the fire department, that daily life? What was it, the daily activities that you do, your kind of like your routines?
It was just like, in a lot of ways, like being at home, because I was doing things at the station that I did at the house every day when I was at home, every day. I mopped floors, I washed clothes, I hung clothes out on a clothesline, I made beds. So it really didn't bother me. But most of the people that came up in our time frame.
Did you feel like, sitting around at the meals helped the bonding back in the day, like you eating as a family?
Yeah, really. And naturally, when I went to the stations, I was the rookie, so I'm the one that cleaned the bathrooms. And I was the one that always sent to the store to get the groceries when we had enough people. And just like now, you have people on the department that you can send to the store to get stuff for hot dogs on Saturday. It was religion. You eat hot dogs on Saturday for lunch.
Oh, we still do at my station.
And you could make a list for them. And they didn't know the difference between a head of cabbage and a head of lettuce.
We still have that problem too.
And they are college graduates. It tells you right up front they ain't done nothing at home. But, it's just the difference in the times and everything else.
Yeah.
And the way they're brought up and the way they're taught. And it makes a big difference. We rotated cooking. When we got a new person, we would work with him and help him and basically tell him, hey, and we got a lot of people that weren't married, and we'd say, if your mama can give you her recipe for one meal, that's all you need, one meal. We rotated every day. Cooking. The only day we did not cook at the station was on Sunday, but we did cook breakfast.
Still do that.
In other words, if you cook lunch and supper on Thursday, and we worked on Sunday,
you brought in Sunday
breakfast. If you cooked on Friday, you'd probably be the one to bring stuff for breakfast on Sunday morning.
Yeah, I know Station 2 was like that when I went to Station 2. If you cooked on Thursday, you brought in Sunday morning breakfast, but then now we have
did it that way, or you brought it in when you come in on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Just depended. Yeah. But, and it worked, usually as a general rule, the way the cooking rotation was set up, the two captains cooked first. In other words, if y'all were working on Monday, if you had two companies, and see, then we had quite a few stations that didn't have but one company. And the captain would cook first, and it'd go right down the line to the low man. And we eat good. We took up $2.50 a day for 2 meals. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons now. No, and then all the stations cooked. Now, nah.
Yeah, now you have a lot of people that either don't cook or they rotate. They'll bring their own stuff in due to diet restrictions.
They either bring their own stuff in,
I think
or they go somewhere to eat. And it's just a big difference when you got people walking in and out of the kitchen like on a Saturday. One of them sitting at the table eating a hamburger that his wife brought him from McDonald's, and another one sitting in there. It's a big difference when you spend that time together.
Yeah, I agree.
And I mean, just like cleaning the kitchen. And in my day on the department, certain days of the weeks, you did certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And it just depended on what station you were at as to what you'd be doing. Monday, you would take everything out of the cabinets and clean the cabinets, dishes, pots, and pans and all, and then put them back in there. Tuesday, you'd clean the stove inside and out. And it would be a different thing for each station, whatever the crew come up with and decided on that they were going to do and how they were going to do it.
Do you feel like did each station have like their own kind of cultures? I know like today, like my station, which you're familiar with, we try to cook two meals a day.
Yeah.
Some days you can't, but then you got some stations that everybody will order out for one meal, or everybody will bring in something, so it varies. You feel like it was like that then, like when it comes to the different cultures, there was a variance of if you went to 10 versus 7 versus Central Station. Do you feel like the cultures were a little different?
But in that time frame, when I first started at the stations, every station in town cooked. Every one of them. The city furnished us with everything we had to have to cook. We furnished the food.
Yeah.
And, but just like if you were downtown at Old Central Station, you knew you were going to go down on Commerce Street and buy groceries, because that's the closest station to you, closest grocery store to you, which ain't one down there no more. But the thing about it, they would send a rookie. And most of just like with Kyle Stewart came from Central Station to Station 7 as a driver on Engine 7 when I was sent to Station 7 right out of training. And every time Kyle would cook, if he couldn't go because the shortage of manpower, he'd make a list. And Kyle knew where every penny went. He's one of those people, if you went and you had $2.50 from each man, you had 8 men, you was gonna have right at $20 to buy groceries with. And if it was $19.36, first thing he's gonna ask you for was change, because we would put it back. We would keep it in a place and keep it back. It's a big difference, really. It really is. And just like in that same time frame, stations would do stuff with their families, like Thanksgiving or Christmas or something like that, all the time. And I mean, the day I retired from Station 10, my retirement party, we got a call and had to leave. And I could have went home at 6 o'clock, but I stayed till 8 o'clock the next morning. I wanted to stay, and I did. But we had the truck room floor slept full, and that happened a bunch right here at Station 1. I don't know how many Christmas and Thanksgiving meals were cooked for families in that kitchen right down there, and the training center kitchen, because we used to use them both, because we had keys to everything. I was in that station the second day it was open, because I was transferred to Station 1 when Station 1 opened. A shift come in here first and B shift come in here second day. We couldn't get the trucks on the truck room floor because we were putting all the furniture upstairs. You know where Whataburger is on Church Street?
Yes, sir.
Those apartment buildings across the street from it?
Yes, sir.
Down in the bottom of the street that goes by the lake. I can't think of the names of the street no more. That project goes all the way down in there. We burned a 2-story building down there the first day I was there. Burn it to the ground. It was under construction. And they said the plumbers, soldered pipe is what caused it.
How do you feel like the stations over the years, like you retired when some of the stations were being built, different designs and stuff like that. How do you feel like with the big dorm rooms, big bunk rooms like that versus the individual cube stations? How do you feel like that affected like the firehouse life and the dynamics?
Really, I think it affected it a lot as far as the guys on their downtime at night being together and picking and playing. I mean, it wasn't nothing. When I come home, you'd be laying in the bed asleep and somebody dumped a bucket of water on you. We played. We had a good time. We really did. Some of the finest people I've ever known in my life. But now, they sit in their little cubicle.
On the phone, on the electronics.
All electronic.
Why do you feel like it's important for active firefighters nowadays to talk to the retirees when they come in and visit and stuff like that?
Well, for one thing, I think I'm a person just like with the fire department. We had more retirees around the fire stations then than they do now. And it's because it was more like a family. Just like when I went to Station 7, we had a gentleman off the street that eat with us every day on our shift. The only shift he eat on for a while, and then he started eating on all 3 shifts, and then he slept in the station at night, and he still does. But the thing about it now is, don't bother me. I'm in here. Leave me alone. And they're not as camaraderie. They don't seem to glue together like we did when I come through. And you learn a lot from them older people. I can name off about 10 or 12 people that you probably know as long as you've been on the fire department that you can learn a lot from.
Oh, yeah.
I ain't kidding you. About fighting fire and doing your job. And just like in my situation, after I made captain, I'd been on calls, and because you work on the department, you may have a 4-man company. In that 4-man company, you got one guy that just got married. You got another one that's got 5 and 6-year-old kids. You got another one that's got kids in high school. And then you may have a grandchild.
God help me.
Out of the 4.
Yeah.
And you would go on calls and see things that you never thought you would see in your life. Come back off that call, and when I was on, we'd be sitting at the kitchen table 2 hours after that call, talking about what we saw and how it affected some of the firemen worse than others.
We have those conversations a lot because my truck's very young. I'm the oldest on my truck, and I have some young ones on my truck. And like you said, the various of where you're the stages of life and how things don't affect you when you're young, but it affects you as you get older because your priorities and stuff like that change.
And it's just not gelled like that now. They go on a call, they get back, bingo, they want to turn the television on, or they want to or talk on the phone. They don't glue together like we did. None whatsoever.
Who were like your biggest mentors when you were on?
Kyle Stewart, Malin Hancock, Ralph Sutton, Danny Shoemate, which Danny lived right behind me. Johnny Teeters, believe it or not. I never worked with Johnny Teeters, but I had him on several classes throughout the department. He was as good a pump man as there ever was. And he taught George Trogdon, some of the older drivers, especially people that were on before this station was ever built here. They were gifted at trying to help you learn how to do your job. And one of the things that I made up my mind before I made captain, if I have a crew, everybody on that crew is going to know how to use every piece of equipment on that truck, how to drive it, how to operate it, period, whether it's a plumper or a ladder truck. And that's what I worked at. And when I was a captain, I would have battalion chiefs to call me on the phone and say, you need to send your driver down here today to drive the truck at Station 11 because we don't have anybody here that can drive. And I'd say, I'll ask him if he wants to come. But I got 4 people on this truck that can drive that truck.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way it should be.
Make sure everybody knows everybody's role and understands.
I had Hal Ritter for a driver. I had his daddy for a captain. I had his daddy for a battalion chief. And Hal knew more about our ladder truck than anybody at Station 10. All 3 shifts. He's one that every morning when he would, and he never worked on that. He never worked anywhere except Station 5. Come off of an engine company at Station 5 and come to the ladder truck at Station 10. Never worked that side of town at all, unless it was some kind of big fire. He knew everything about that truck. And he would take time, just like with Jinx. Every morning, Jinx looked like a little rat crawling along behind Hal. When Hal would go out there and check that truck, and he'd check everything on it. And now you hear, well, why do we have to check it? They checked it yesterday.
Got to make sure everything's ready for your day.
Well, I wanted to know quick what was or what wasn't working on that truck, so I could call the battalion chief and say, hey, everything's great except the K-12 and it don't work. And that's the way my crew worked. Everybody. I had going to Station 11 and driving the ladder truck that we used to have at Station 10 when they opened up new 11. He'd go down there and drive the truck. He's the youngest man I had on my crew. But I'd ask Hal, hey, Hal, you want to go down there and spend a day down there? And if he wanted to go, I let him go because I had 2 other people sitting there that could do the same
job.
Yeah. And towards the end of my career, I wanted somebody that could do computers. I'd never touched a computer in my life till I was 56 years old. They put one in the station. Never even seen one. And when they put it in Station 10. And then when they put one up in the truck, that made it even worse.
How did you like that transition?
I really didn't because, when I went to 10 as captain, I'd been a captain for 6 years, 7 years before I went to 10. And regular, ordinary, everyday life, anything that happened at that station, we kept a running logbook. by the hour, plus the fire calls. And then we got into where we were filling out forms and things for the fire, medical calls or fire or something like that, or chemical spill or something like that. And we would, when I went over to the computers, there were 5 or 6 of us from the department that went to GTCC together and took computer classes so we could learn how to do it with computer. And every 2 months for 2 years, they would change the programs. And I'd tell them, and I got a rookie out of almost every class from the time I went to Station 10. And I was there 13 years. And I'd tell them, I said, if you got a guy in the training class that can't count to 100 and can't spell it, I said, give him to me if he can run a computer, and I'll teach him how to be a fireman.
What do you remember about like some of your first calls, like fire calls, medical calls, stuff like that?
Well, the first fire call I rode out of Station 7, which was a car fire at the intersection of Market Street and
I don't know the name.
I can't remember the name of the blame street, but we had a car fire right there in that intersection. And I think it was the second day I was at Station 7, and that was the first fire call I ever wrote. That's the first fire call I ever wrote.
So when you got hired, you were, like I said earlier, you had your EMT. You were the first class to have your EMT.
We were the first class that had EMT in training.
How often were y'all dispatched a lot of medical calls, or is it more like you dispatched just very little when they needed help?
Engine companies and the ladders, which we didn't have that many ladders. I don't think we had but 4 ladder trucks when I come home. I believe that's all we had. The ladder trucks would ride a few, and we wrote a lot of medical calls. And then they came in with the squads, and you had a squad at certain stations. 5 had one, 7 had one, 8 had one, and I can't think of who had the other one, but we had 4 squads. And over a period of time, the squads started, taking the bulk of the medical calls, but they're right back now. I think the truck companies are taking about as many as they were 20 years ago. And I enjoyed calls. I really, especially the ones where we didn't have any, human problems or anything of that nature. Now, I tell you the calls I didn't like, the glow in the dark.
Stay away from the hazmat.
Didn't like them. And I had my share of them. I'm not kidding. And I had a bunch of fires, a bunch of them. I had some of the best ones Greensboro ever had.
So were you on the Davie Street fire?
Yes, sir.
I was good. So what were some, like, I guess some of the biggest, like, were most memorable calls that you had?
One of the most memorable calls, which it was a whole lot of standing around, but it was one heck of a fire. And probably 2/3 of the Greensboro Fire Department wound up being on it over the period of time. Train hit an 8,000-gallon gasoline tanker out there off of Market Street going towards the airport. It burnt down telephone poles on both sides of the road for a 1/4 mile. And one of the biggest things about it that it took so long, the crew from the air base down towards Fayetteville came up here with phone. We didn't have phone, but when it burnt 500 yards of the asphalt on Market Street from Vic Chemical Company all the way down to where the tank farm's at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a big fire.
That's a big fire.
But now that was one of the most memorable. Carolina Theater Fire, I was on it. Davie Street, I was on it. I had some monster fires as captains. Yeah. I really did. We had a tanker fire on 85. I was working out of Station 11 then, and that was earlier in my career. We had an 8,000-gallon gasoline tanker that flipped over out there. It burnt all night long, but you remember the bigger ones. I remember my first fire fatality. I had it when I was at Station 7. We had and you couldn't tell whether it was a male or a female, and he was laying about 3 feet inside the door. But I remember that. I won't never forget that because I'm one of the ones that had to help get him in a bag. I had to help EMS get him in a bag. And there's little odd and end calls that while I was at 10, right there at Merritt Drive and High Point Road, and I was a captain. I come the closest to losing my job that I ever, my whole career. We were sitting out in front of the station about 6 o'clock in the evening, and a lady ran the stoplight, hit a pickup truck in the passenger door on High Point Road. And we heard it. We did not see it, but we heard it from the station. We were all talking, but we heard the wreck. I grabbed the walk-in call communications. I said, put Quint 10 out Merritt Drive and High Point Road on the 1050 and send the EMS. We carried the ladder truck down there. Well, unbeknownst to us, until we got there and started looking, there was a hole about that big around in the front windshield on the passenger side of the car. There was a 2-year-old standing in the front seat. It throwed him over the pickup truck, and he landed in the bed of a pickup truck at the hot dog shop. The woman that was driving the truck, the car, was so drunk she didn't even know where she was at. She didn't know the kid was in the car, and she was running her mouth like crazy. And I told the policeman, I said, if you don't put that woman in your car, I'm going to lose my job because I'm going to jack her right upside the head. And luckily, the kid had stitches, wound up with stitches from right on the corner of his mouth almost to his ear. And that was the only thing that was wrong with it. His daddy come and his daddy says, where's my son? I said, we just put him in the back of the EMS unit. He says, how bad's he hurt? I said, sir, I really don't know, but I can tell you he's cut down across the side of the face. I said, they're going to take him to the hospital to find out how bad he's hurt. And he says, did she know she had him in the car? I said, no, sir. And 2 days later, 2 work days later, he brought him by the station. And that's all he had. He had stitches from right in here, all the way down to the corner of his mouth. I had a 4-month-old baby that a 27-year-old drug addict put in a gas oven. And in that time frame, I had 2 guys on my shift that had 1 to 2-year-old kids. That was an all-night session at the kitchen table.
Do you feel like you managing stress like that? I still do the same thing. Like me as the captain, to sit there and I pull my guys and talk to them. Do you feel like the department itself done a good job, back in the day of managing,
Yes,
helping
they did.
stress?
We had several men in several different calls that the department worked with the city to have them, and they sit and talked about certain calls and stuff. And it's necessary.
Yes, I agree.
It is something that is that I feel is necessary and should be done. Yeah. Really.
We're bad about compartmentalizing a lot of things as a profession.
Yeah.
How do you feel like your roles and responsibilities evolved and changed over the time as being a fireman?
Well, like I told you to start with, most of my class were raised in the county, and they all knew how to drive straight gears. And the majority of my class drove. We rotated around all over. I drove every piece of equipment in this fire department. The first year and a half I worked on the fire department. And when I made captain and they put me in arson investigation and inspections, when they built new Station 5, they come out here, they come talk to me, want to know if I could drive that ladder truck, the new ladder truck. I said, yeah, I can drive it. Well, we need for you to go get the city manager and the assistant city manager and pick them up downtown and carry them out to new Station 5 for the opening today. Okay, I had a ball. And, you just, and by working in all the different stations, you learn a lot about people. You meet people that you hear about in other stations. Oh, so-and-so down here at Station 12, he did such and such the other week. And you ain't never worked nowhere near Station 12. And, moving around, you get to see and understand a lot of those people. You really do. And it's a, in some ways, yes, it's inconvenient because you're carrying everything in your car. I had a battalion chief at Station 7, Mick Neal, and he's the greatest person in the world. He's the only guy I've ever seen in my life that could sit in the living room where the TV's at with his feet propped up on a cabinet door, listening to the radio, reading the paper, and watching a TV program all at the same time. And he'd get on the PA, he'd get up and walk into the office and get on the PA system and says, "Okay, guys, let's go. We got a fire down here at the barbecue place on Bessemer Avenue." And they ain't dispatched nothing. But he'd been on forever and a day. I don't know how long he was on. But, and, you know, you learn different people, different ways of doing things because of where they were located. And the biggest thing, I think the biggest change in my entire career was when they started with the hazmat, because they didn't have hazmat when I come on. But before I left, they did, big time. And I was asked several times to go on it. They don't want to be in the glow in the dark group.
They're a unique group of people.
That was one of the good things. And you know, I know some of the people that were rovers, that were assigned rovers. You'd run across them or because of working in a different area and being moved to drive a truck. Oh, that's so and so. He come out of my class. He's a rover. Yeah, and you learn different ways. You learn different people, and you need, just like I told you. How many stations do they have now in the Greensboro Fire Department?
27.
27. They had 12 when I come on, and we had 4 companies at Central Station, 2 engine companies and 2 ladder trucks.
How many people were employed by the fire department then? How many firemen did y'all have then?
I found out from Faye Manaheim at Jay Lewis's funeral. I don't know if y'all know of Jay Lewis. Jay Lewis is one of the only people on the fire department that worked on the same piece of equipment his entire career. He drove engine 2 out of Station 1, out of Central Station, and he drove it down here. You know, Faye told us, there were 6 or 7 out of our class standing there at the funeral waiting. And she said, when our class went on the line, which was 12 of us, that made 113 line fighting firemen in the department. That's including captains and firemen. That's not battalion chiefs and stuff like that. It's line fighting firemen. How many of y'all got now?
They try to average around 170 plus per shift. We have 100.
Yeah, per shift.
Yeah, we have 156 per shift a day.
All right.
So I think we're around 600. We're around 600.
113 for the entire department.
Yeah, we're around 600.
Y'all probably have close to 1,000.
We're right there around 600 firemen.
Yeah. And it's a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
It really is. And there's a lot more of it. I mean, and, you know, I was fortunate. I was born and raised over off between Phillips Avenue and Wendover. And when I come out of training, they sent me straight to Station 7. And I grew up over there. I went to school at Bessemer High School until they closed it. And I had to walk from my house back up Elwell Avenue to Bessemer School to catch the school bus and ride back right down by my house to Page High School. Every day. We had a choice when they closed Bessemer. You could either go to Page or you could go to Northeast. But if you went to Northeast, you had to furnish your own way. And I knew, you know, wasn't nobody but me and my mother. My mother worked at Laurel Lard. She was the first person hired when Laurel Lard opened in Greensboro. And she couldn't.
Didn't have the means.
She had to be at work 7 o'clock in the morning. So I went to Page. I graduated from Page.
What would you say your proudest moment on the job has been?
Proudest moment on the job?
Yes, sir.
When I made captain. I was proud of myself. I really was. Because I never thought I would. I really didn't. And now I was fortunate that I made it the way I did. I went into Fire Prevention Bureau and arson investigation. I went to Raleigh about 2 years after I was up in the administrative office. I went to Raleigh to the State Bureau of Investigation and took a 6 weeks arson class, and I enjoyed that. And I got in trouble with it. And when I come back and work calls, trying to find out, what caused them and so forth. I enjoyed that part of it. I just didn't enjoy the city. I'm the one that wrote the city manager's wife a ticket.
How'd that work out?
Not worth crap. That's how I got out of Fire Prevention Bureau. I'm serious.
Yeah.
They sent me with a city building inspector to Lindley swimming pool. They were having a swim meet. And told me, go out there and check those tents. They have to be flame retardant, have to have a certificate that they are. Okay? Went out there. Second person I went to. I didn't know the lady from Adam's House Cat. Didn't care. She had one of these green yard tarps that you would buy to get leaves up in the yard and drag them out to the street, which you can't do no more. And I told her, I said, ma'am, you cannot have these children under this. It has to be flame retardant. I'm the city manager's wife. Then I knew I was in trouble. I said, ma'am, I can't help it. You cannot have it. You're either going to take it down or I'm going to write you a ticket. About 15 minutes after I wrote the ticket, she called me on the radio. Come to station 1 now. That's all it was said. I come back over here. What in the hell do you mean writing this ticket to the city manager's wife? And my desk was the first one when you went up the top of the steps and walked in the door on the right-hand side. That was where I sit, my little cubicle. You can't write her a ticket. I said, wait a minute. And I had the North Carolina Fire Code laying on my desk. I used it religiously. I picked it up. I said, you show me in that book right there where she's exempt because she's the city manager's wife, and I'll go get the ticket. Greensboro Coliseum, when they were revamping it and building all the new stuff, had a 250-gallon gasoline tank sitting in the middle of the parking lot with a pump on it to pump gas into the equipment that they were using out there. They had a drop cord, 318 feet long, because I measured it, pieced together, run all the way down to the backside of the auditorium, down to the basement. Went through the door, didn't open the door. The door had those ventilation things on the front of it. They just run it through that, run it down the hallway, and they put it in an electrical panel as big as from where those pipes are to that cabinet right there. Had it hooked up to a 200 amp breaker. I had a electrical inspector with me. I said, what do you want to do with it? He said, I'll show you what to do with it. He disconnected it. About every 3 feet he walked, he cut it too with a pair of 9-inch clines. Another day, Captain Williams come to the station. Come back. You can't do that. They have to have that gas. I said, no, they have to have that gas, but they got to have it right. And that ain't legal. 2 days later, Richard Johnson, who was assistant to the chief of the department, his operations deputy chief, come walking back out of my cubicle. He said, Bill, if you was going to get transferred, where would you not want to go? I said, don't send me to 7 or 4. Next day, I was at Station 7 working. That's how I got out of fire prevention.
If you could change anything about your career, what would it be?
The time I retired, I'd have stayed another 5 years. I really would. And the reason I say that, I would go back to work for them right now if they would hire me. I'm not kidding. Me working on the fire department was like giving a kid an all-day lollipop and say, ride that big red truck and blow that siren. I had the greatest people in the world to work with.
I tell people all the time, most firemen are just big kids. The toys just got more expensive.
That's exactly right. But seriously, I did. And and it's the same now, I think, to some extent, as it was when I come on. And you'd be talking to other firemen, well, what station you work at? I work at Station 9. Oh, they don't never ride. Yeah, that's true. Or, where you work at? I work at Station 8. Oh, boy, they ride all the time. Yeah, they ride all the time. I worked at 4. Yeah, 4 rides more calls than anybody in Greensboro. I worked at 7. And that's the conversations you hear with people that you don't ever actually work on a fire call with and run across. And now, I'd go to any. I worked at 9 for 6 years, and we were lucky if we wrote a call a month on the truck company. And one of the greatest things I'll never forget about that, have you ever heard of Wayne Snuggs? You know his son? Chuck. I knew Chuck when Chuck wasn't that big, and he knew more about that ladder truck at Station 9 than anybody on the department. His daddy was on the back of the truck with me. We had to call the Wesley Long Hospital. His daddy had on his helmet, his coat, and nothing else. 3 o'clock in the morning. Didn't have on no bunker pants or nothing. No boot. He's sitting on the back of the truck. That coat. I'll never forget that. No. And one of the finest people I ever worked with in my life. Thank you. I thought the world of it. And I did. I got to work with a lot of old heads and a lot of young ones. I mean, I saw people come on the department that when they came to our station before I made captain, that I wouldn't think would last 6 months. And some of them made operations deputy chief. And I feel like I did decent in my career. I made 9 captains on my career, 3 battalion chiefs, and 1 deputy chief.
Train them right.
I feel like I did. I tried anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. But I'd go back tomorrow. But the biggest reason I said that about staying another 5 years, I was 58 years old at the end of this month, I'll be retired 20 years, 30th of November. And I was 58 years old. And I would have stayed. Knowing what I know now, I would have stayed till I was at least 62. I really would. Because money ain't what you think it is. Really. And the difference in the salaries now, it's unbelievable. Ty makes as much money right now driving the ladder truck as I made as a captain with 22 years of service as a captain.
It's changed a lot. I know when I tested for captain, it was about half of what I'm making now was what the starting salary for a captain was over the years.
And you know, just like with me, when I went on training class, $7,200 a year. And we worked a 56-hour week, just like y'all did.
We're starting out around right there at $50,000 a year. I said they're starting around $50,000 a year
training
now.
class.
Yep.
Yeah. And the thing about it, it has there's things about the job that you really don't think are going to happen, but do happen. That's just like with me. I'd been married 7 years. I had 2 kids. I had a 6-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. I got off from that station right there one Saturday morning, went home, walked in the door, 2 kids sitting in the living room floor eating cereal out of a box. I said, "Where's your mom?" "In the bed." Walked back there and she's in the bed with the guy she worked with. She wound up with a house, 2 cars, and $900 a month child support for 14 years. And you don't think about that. You know,
Yeah.
But that's the way it went. But I did. I loved every minute I worked on the fire department. And like I say, I'd go back right now if I could. I really would. I enjoyed it. I worked with wonderful people. I'm not kidding. I did. I worked with good people. And I raised some from nothing. When I made captain upstairs, they sent me to Station 7 when I wrote the chief.
A little tobacco.
Yeah. I got a rookie out of that first class, Matthew Reed, one of the finest people I've ever met in my life.
I agree.
Matthew's wife would come to the station every evening that he worked right after supper. This is before he took his probationary test, and work with him. And Matthew was smart as a whip at certain things, but he's one of those that couldn't count fast and he couldn't spell my name. Anyway, when his class took their probationary test, and I think it was Kerry Hensley that was in the training division then. Kerry called me, said, "Bill, he's on his way back to the station." I said, "How'd he do?" He said, "He made the highest score in the group." I said, "You kidding me?" He said, "No." Well, we were just fixing to sit down to eat supper at the kitchen table. He come walking in the door, and I said, "Sit down and eat you some supper. Ain't nothing like the last meal." And it's just like you took the color out of him. I said, he said, "I didn't pass." I said, Well, it was close, and I felt so bad about it. About 2 hours later, after we'd all told him, and we weren't doing a thing except picking and playing with him.
Yeah.
But he got so sick, he told it. Thank you, he really did. It made him sick as a dog. That's one thing I wished I'd have never done was picked on him. And to this day, I think the world of him.
He's a good man.
I work him a lot. He's done a lot of work for me and my family and stuff. Matthew's a good person. He really is. I think the world of him. And I had a lot of rookies. And Ty's another one. I had a ball with Ty. I had more fun with him than really any of them, but I had a ball with him.
With all the great firemen you've worked with, and you're working 31 years here, what do you feel like defines a successful firefighter?
A person that knows how to do his job and can teach other people how to do it. Because when I made captain, I made up my mind that everybody on my truck was going to be able to do everybody's job to fill in. And like I say, I had good people. I'm one of the ones that was testing hydrants on High Point Road at 2 o'clock in the morning. I didn't have nobody get hit. Made the battalion chief mad. Why? I said, you ever tried to run that 74-foot ladder truck up and down the road with 4 people on it on High Point Road? I said, it ain't as crowded at 2 o'clock in the morning.
That's true.
And I told the crew, I said, y'all do what? I said, y'all make up your mind. What we can either go out there in the middle of the day and do it, or we can do it when we don't have to worry about getting hit. I said, and whatever. Well, the day we did it, they sit at the station all day, done what they wanted to do. We left the station about 12 o'clock. And we tested every hydrant on High Point Road from the Greensboro Coliseum all the way past Station 10. And part of that was Station 8's territory.
Yeah. Who outside of the fire department made the biggest difference in your life, and how?
My wife. My bride and I have been married 48 years. Both of us have been married before. She's my sidekick. She looks after me.
How did she help you with your career, like going through the ranks over the years?
Well, over the years, and with the just like with the captain's test, she and I were married at that time when I took the captain's test that second time. I passed it the first time, and I passed it the second time. Like I told you to start with before we started the interview, a third of my family lives on the ocean of Maine, right on the coast. I took the captain's test. I flew from Maine back to Greensboro to take the captain's test. Turned around, flew back to Maine the next day. 3 weeks later, I drove home to take the interview, to do the interview, and I made captain. I was the only person promoted off the captain's list the year that I made captain. And I went into Fire Prevention Bureau and arson investigation. And she was behind me the whole way.
She probably knew more about a captain's process than a lot of firemen did.
In a lot of ways, yes, because my wife is in that time span, with computers and stuff like that. Now, we had one in the house for several years, but I didn't even know how to cut it on. Her and the kids did, all 3 of my kids. Right now, my youngest daughter is the city manager in Winter Harbor, Maine. Her husband is sergeant on the police department in Winter Harbor, Maine. And that same girl also works for Disney and the NFL. If you want to go to the Super Bowl, call her. She'll get you there the cheapest and the best way in the world.
Might take you up on that one this year.
And, my oldest girl, the 57-year-old, she's in real estate. She sells houses. And I've got a 52-year-old son that works for CPI Security. He's been with them for pushing 30 years because he went to work for them right after he come home from the Marine Corps. And I got grandchildren in the Marine Corps. I got people scattered everywhere. Got one in the Bering Straits that listens to the Russians talk, and I got one somewhere close to Israel. He's a sniper, Marine Corps. But fire department, Like I told you, it's just like giving a kid all day a lollipop and say, ride that big red truck. I loved every minute of it.
Well, if you could speak to any new firefighters coming on in the fire service today, what advice would you give them?
Get with the oldest person on the crew. And if you don't know how to do something or how to use a piece of equipment that's on that truck, tell him. Ask him if he will explain it and help you. Don't be ashamed to ask him.
You don't know what you don't know.
No, sir. I mean, I know of one or two circumstances in the department right now that if a person had done that, they would still be here. Really. Don't be ashamed or afraid to say, I don't understand or I don't know how to do that. And the worst question is the one you didn't ask.
I agree.
If you don't know, ask. Really. These people that have been here, just like in your situation, people that have been around this, doing this for 15, 20 years, 30, and some more than that,
Mm-hmm.
they've learned things that you don't learn from books. And the biggest thing I'd tell them is on a fire call, pay attention to what's going on around you. Don't just go, wide open running through the front door, because you might not do the right thing.
Tunnel vision will get you.
Yes, sir. It'll come up and bite you.
Is there anything else you'd like to share about your life or on or off duty that we haven't covered?
No, not really. I've got 3 wonderful kids, and like I say, I got 9 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren. I've been married to a good woman for 48 years, and I love my time on the fire department. I don't mind telling you, I really did. And the biggest thing I hated about working in administration was the city, period. And I guess it's because same as the electrical. I learned the electrical trade. A lot of federal and state regulations that you can't change. That's just like in my time frame in the electrical. You could take your wire and stick it into the back of a switch or a receptacle. I was brought up, now you wrap it around the screw. 12 years later, the state of North Carolina changed the law. Just like now, you build a new house right now and get it ready, and the inspector comes out there and inspects it. If those wires are not wrapped around those screws, you'll turn it down. Because the more you, just like with a receptacle, the more you push a wire or a plug into that receptacle, the more you push against that wire. It's got that little metal piece holding it in there, and it cuts it in two. See, now it is not legal in the state of North Carolina to stick those wires in the back of that device, switch or receptacle, either one. And you just learn certain things over a period of time. And just like in the fire department, the one thing that I really, and I'm being serious, that I was never interested in was being part of the glow in the dark. I'm one of these that believes if you can't see it, it'll kill you.
What would you like for the fire department to remember about you?
Bill. That's all I want them to remember. Bill.
What would you like for your family to remember about you?
I'd like, really, I have 2 grandsons that I would love to see go into the fire service because they are good. They know things, and they've never been in the fire service in their life, but they know things that it took me 4 years to learn working in the fire service. And I'd like to see that, really would. I really would. And I know basically my grandchildren would love to see me learn how to use a computer. And see, that's the biggest reason I left. I left 2 years after they put the computer in Station 10, and I've never, been a computer. And it's just like right now, I've got grandchildren that talk to watches instead of a telephone.
Hmm.
Oh, Popo, you're old. Yeah, Popo's old, but it was some good years. I loved every bit of it. I ain't kidding you. I'd like, and right now, of the 9 grandsons, 4 of them have got Greensboro Fire Department captain's badges. I got 6 when I worked. And my youngest great granddaughter is going to wind up with the last one that I got. I'm going to give it to her. But I really would. There's nothing wrong. The fire service is a good thing. It's a great thing. You'll do things on the fire department that you never dream in your life that you would do. And on the bad side of it, you'll see things that you wished you had never saw in your life. And that's the biggest thing. I enjoyed the camaraderie of the people. Everywhere I was at, I was assigned to 7, 3, it don't exist no more. Station 1, Station 9, Station 10, Station 12, 14, and that's it. Those stations I were assigned at in a 27-year period, 25-year period. Some of them, I never worked at 8. I filled in at 8 a couple of times driving.
Was never assigned.
I never really worked at 8. Never was assigned there. But I just didn't. And really, 99.9% of the people, they're some of the greatest people in the world. Like my wife says, there's always one rotten apple in the barrel.
You got that in every job.
You look over them, you really do. But I really love and I'm serious, because when I first retired, I come close to coming back out here and teaching pumping. I really did. And I just didn't pursue it because I was working myself to death in the electrical business. And see, that's another thing too. In our time frame, when I come on, all of us had a job. We all worked somewhere before we come on the department. Up until April, 2 years ago, there were 9 of us retired firemen that worked together. Me and Emmett, and one still on the department, Justin Snyder.
He was my driver when I first went to 10.
We had our own tile people, our own electricians, our own plumbers, David Garrett, our own brick masons, concrete people, roofing people. But it was our part-time jobs on the day we were off.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked, and we worked together. And I loved every minute of it, because I got to see some of the ones that's been retired for a pretty good while, and then some of the ones that like with Justin. Justin's a good kid.
He is.
And I call him a kid because he's younger than everybody I got. But he is. He's a good, and he's a hard working. He's in that bracket that, he wasn't going to have a winner to throw it at unless he worked, because nobody going to leave him nothing. Give him nothing. And see, in my situation, my daddy died when I was 9 years old. He was 43 years old when he passed away. And basically, my mama raised me. And the only thing I hate about that is I didn't have anybody to teach me anything about a car. If it has to be done to a car, it's probably going to go right down here on the other side of the stoplight at Cornwallis, because that's where I've been taking it for the last 13 years. But I did. I loved every minute of my job. It was fun. It was all fun. Really, I enjoyed it. And I appreciate y'all having me.
Oh, we enjoyed it. It's been an honor. I know getting to see you at the station and getting to talk to you here. It's always a good time.
Well, and that's another thing too. My wife tells me, she says, you run your mouth all the time. And I do. I talk a lot. I really do.
I've been accused.
But I met, it's just unreal. The people that I met through the fire department and the people on the fire department. They're some of the greatest. Just like a while ago when I had the battalion chief at Station 7, Tim. I worked for Tim on my days off for 5 or 6 years before I retired. And I told him, I said, Tim, I'm going to retire. You're going to have to find you somebody to work. No. And I retired. Tim calls me, I need for you to go to work full time now. I said, nah, I told you, I'm retired. And really, that's one of the things. There's certain things because of my working in the department. Sunday, I go to church. I don't do nothing else. I don't do anything on Sunday. If a pipe breaks at the house and I ain't got no water and it's running out the floor, I might do that. But other than that, nah, I don't do nothing on Sunday because I worked every third Sunday for 31 years. And that goes into the same thing with the kids. My kids were young when I started. People that worked on the fire department with me would trade with me so I could go to graduations and weddings. I went to Maine one summer and stayed 5.5 weeks and did not use a day of sick leave.
It's a great benefit.
You better believe it is. It
I love
really is. But I loved the job. I was happy. And I had wonderful people to work with. Every station I was assigned to before I made captain and everyone after captain, I had great people. I really did. I really didn't have any problems with it. It got to the point with a lot of the boys that I worked with, and I call them boys because they were all a whole lot younger than me then. I'd tell them, I said, I could come out here and say, okay, guys, we're going to get toothbrushes and clean the grout in the floor on the truck room floor, and y'all wouldn't open your mouth. When you want to start? That's what they'd say. I really, and friends that I'll never forget. I mean, a bunch of them, especially the ones we went through training with, all of them, because we were pretty close knit in training. We really were, and we had some smart people in there, some good ones. We really did.
It's a second family. It's a second family.
Oh yeah, that's the whole thing. It's the station end of it is like a family. And it's what you want to make out of it. If you want to talk, that's just like, and I know from being there, it's just like you. There are things that the guys at the fire station know about you that your wife don't know. If you're married, and I assume you are, and it's just a second life away from home. That's all it is, and a lot, and because it falls into some of the military scale stuff. It's just like living in a different house on a different street. That's all it is for a day.
It's a grown-up sleepover.
Yep, you're exactly right.
Well, thank you, Bill, for being here.
Well, I hope I helped you out, son.
Oh, I'm glad you came. It's been an honor.